That's good. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order.
Pull the mic to you.
A little closer. All right, is that better?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Stat. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up. Excellent. Lane, we good? Perfect. Welcome, everyone, to the first in-person meeting of the Council for Post-Secondary Education. And I want to acknowledge all the council members that are here today. Thank you all for joining, and all of the council members that are attending via Zoom. I believe you guys can see them on the monitor behind me. Isn't it good to be back in person?
Yes.
Yes. You're here. I don't think we need a motion to all agree on that one. I want to thank Kentucky State University for hosting this meeting. Thank you for your hospitality and your generosity. And I wanted to call on President Brown. I believe he has some welcoming statements for everyone in a few words. Dr. Brown? He's a busy man.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Pull the mic to you. A little closer. Is that better? All right. Thank you, Dr. Stat. We need to recap. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so.
If we have the power to go back in time.
Welcome to the first in-person meeting of the Council for Post-Secondary Education.
Over the last 3 years, we finished an energy performance contract just last year with CCMC that has new chiller lines all over the campus. The entire campus is cool. But of course, this morning, one of the fuses blew in the blower in this building. And so we're waiting on facilities to get that blower restarted. For you here, their fans, anything, Amy McGee is here from USDA and Land Grant Research, anything you need, they'll make that provision for you. Certainly, we have made progress on our management improvement plan. We want to just highlight two things for you. We left you a copy of our recent quadrennial, which is our 4-year report. Just page 42 and 43 is all we want to share, and then wish you a really successful day. We had the opportunity to complete our 10-year SAC-CLC reaffirmation and be reaffirmed without any monitoring reports or probation. And then just last year, we were invited for membership with the COPLAC, which you see on page 43, the Council for Public Liberal Arts Colleges. There are only 28 in the country. Kentucky State becomes the first and only institution from the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and the first and only historically Black college in the history of COPLAC to be a member. And as you see on page 42, over the last 4 years, we've been able to grow the quality of our academic programs and our academic outcomes. And you see our rankings continue to climb. So anything we can do here at Kentucky State to support the Commonwealth, our work readiness agenda, we stand at the ready. I don't know if Dr. Ferris wanted to say a word before I sat down. No, she doesn't. Thank you all so much. Have a successful meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Appreciate it. Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Thompson.
Dr. Brown, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Ferris, I just want to say great being back on the campus. Campus is looking good. Hearing the chiller lines going in, I mean, if you haven't been in Kentucky for a while or been here, this has been something long in coming. We appreciate the partnership we have with Kentucky State. This is our only public HBCU, for those that don't know that. And our commitment to our historically Black colleges and universities here in Kentucky is great. It will remain great. And we are very happy that you folk allow us to be on your campus today. So thank you both.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Heather, can you do the roll call?
Dr. Mohammed Bakar.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ronald Beal. Mr. Colby Burks. Mr. Eric Ferris.
Here.
Ms. Lori Harper.
Here. Here.
Ms. Karen Hoover. Mr. Lucas Spencer.
Here.
Ms. Christy Nelson. Mr. Richard Nelson.
Here.
Ms. Vidya Ravichandran.
Here.
Mr. Madison Silver.
Here.
Dr. Robert Stack.
Here.
Ms. Doris Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Kevin Weaver.
Here.
Ms. Carol Wright. Commissioner Jason Glass.
Here.
We have 10. Just four.
Excellent. Thank you very much. There's an item we're going to add to the agenda here at the beginning. There are two recommendations from the executive committee pertaining to Dr. Thompson's compensation, as well as term, as well as the annual review process. So the executive committee has two recommendations in that regard, and we need a motion to go into executive session to have discussions on that. And do I have a motion?
Chair, I move pursuant to KRS 618101F to exit open session and move into executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Point of logistics, the council is now going to relocate to the boardroom, and we will be back after the closed session is complete. I would ask Travis and Heather if you can please join us. We're just going to get our technology in order and we'll move forward. Good. I don't see video.
Yeah, they're just.
Oh, video's in?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll need her video for voting, yes? Okay. But even with her out, we have a quorum to? Okay. Okay, thank you all very much for your patience. We appreciate that. I need a motion to come out of the executive session.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Nelson, second, anybody?
Second.
Second, Mr. Silver. All in favor of coming out of executive session? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay. We have two motions on the table at this time. The first is in regard to Dr. Thompson's annual review timing. It is currently on a calendar year, and the motion is to move it to a fiscal year. The second motion concerns Dr. Thompson's compensation and term extension, and we'll handle those in two separate motions. So on the first, on the annual review process, do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. With Ms. Weaver. Do we have a second?
Second.
Doris, second by Doris. Okay, do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, motion carries. The second motion on the table is to move Dr. Thompson to the statutory maximum from a compensation perspective and to grant him an extension on his term through June 30th of 2026, which would actually be a 3-year extension on his current contract. Do I have a motion for that action?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ferris, second by Dr. Stat. Do we have any discussion?
I'd just like to add that this is taking Dr. Thompson's compensation back to a level that was set over 10 years ago. And so just it's kind of going back to where we were 10 years ago without any adjustment for inflation. So
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anybody, any other comments?
And this currently is the maximum, and for the duration of that extension term, it's recommended that would remain the maximum unless the statute is changed.
We're having a hard time hearing that here.
Everybody move your mics a little closer. I'd like to just say that the extension to 2026, I'd like to serve as a reminder and a message that the council has very high confidence in the job that Dr. Thompson has done and a recognition of the performance, the achievements, and the momentum that we've gained during some of the most difficult times we've all experienced, especially the last year and a half. And that this should offer stability and continuity of leadership. I can speak for the council that we appreciate your leadership. We appreciate the staff's leadership and execution over the last few years. And we look forward to working with you for many years to come.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody on the council. Okay, next order is the meeting minutes. The minutes from our April 15th, 16th, and May 13th meeting are in onboard. Are there any objections to those as presented? All right, hearing none, they are approved as distributed. Next up will be the report from Dr. Thompson. President Thompson, your written report is in the agenda materials. Is there anything else you'd like to highlight at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Hopefully you can hear me. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and all of the council for the support. It is my pleasure to be the president of the council as well as the head of higher education for a lot of reasons. Obviously, I mean, it sounds crazy, I get paid well, but many of you know that's not the reason. The reason is, in fact, Kentucky is worthy of having a extremely strong and maybe the most powerful higher education system in the country, whether it's our private institutions or our publics or even our private sector. It is important that we think about this truly as a collective in getting where we need to go with an educated workforce and a strong economy. To do that, it's going to take a lot of interaction among our constituency of Kentucky, and I'm proud to be the band leader, if you will, and thank you for the confidence. I do want to thank my staff. I would be remiss if I didn't say that whatever I reflect, it really is about those who are out there that's doing the real work. And the idea that sometimes we fail to give them the recognition they deserve. Mr. Chair, I appreciate your statement about that. That to me is truly the essence of a good leader, that he or she knows how to bring in good people that will do good work. So thank you, staff. Mr. Chair, I want to give you just a few highlights of what is in your meeting book in my president's report. The first is, as you all know, the governor announced a shot at $1 million. For those who can show that they've been vaccinated, have a chance to be a millionaire. I had a chance to do that press conference with him to announce that he will be giving away 15 scholarships, full ride scholarships at our most expensive institution. That's how they judge that, for those between 12 and 17 who's taken a shot and show that they have been vaccinated. I appreciate the governor for putting forth this effort into showing the importance of us getting back into full swing in our post-secondary institutions and making sure that we keep our students safe, as well as we are building on the academic process. I do want to say also that, we came through COVID, and yes, we've learned a lot. And I'm happy to say that our higher education institutions are not waiting on us to find out all the results of our COVID experiment, but we're looking at innovation as we grow on the spot. We don't have time to wait to figure out exactly what the data are telling us. We have to build as we go, and we're happy, and you'll see a lot from us if you haven't already, just how we are doing that. There was a bill that was passed, I forgot it was a House bill, whatever, but it was student right to know. And we put together our CPE folk in our data shop, as well as KY Stats, a way that you can actually get on the web for students, no matter where they're at. Commissioner Glass, your students will be in the middle of this, hopefully, looking at it, where you can see whatever major you want, how much it's going to cost you, what the average debt on that major has been for students. It gives you everything. So we decided to really build a comprehensive data portal that would allow, a web portal that would allow you to click on and immediately get the information that you would need. If you hadn't had a chance to look at this yet, I would invite you to do so. Some staff updates. We have a new person on board. We're going to be concentrating heavily on economic development. We don't believe you can build a strong economy unless you have a strong higher ed system, and you have to have employers in on the front end, but I see CPE as a liaison of creating that. And as many of you well know, that when I came on board several years ago, the thing that I wanted to do more than anything else was to reorganize CPE to focus on what I feel are the bigger elements of where we're trying to go and how we get there. So we built a P20 system of looking at the gaps and working with our commissioner and workforce development and so on. Well, this end will be working with our economic development folk, as well as some of our workforce, to look at how we build that system together. And I look forward for many of you to be engaged with us. Madison, we talked about it last night. This is crucial, the way we need to be thinking about building our state. We also are losing David Mahan, who's the head of our data shop. And we're sad about that. Mike is leaving us also. I just found out. These are two wonderful people that have added so much to CPE, and we're going to miss them. They're going on to bigger and better things. Well, okay, maybe bigger things. But we're sad to see you go, and we are really sad to see David. David has helped build a state-of-the-art data center here in Kentucky, along with KY Stats. If you're not familiar with this, Kentucky is considered to lead the nation in this area. You can get almost anything you want at the drop of a finger now. And it wasn't that many years ago that wasn't the case. And another statement on this, going back to the student right to know. I fully believe in transparency. And the more we offer this to our citizens of Kentucky, the better decisions that they can make. We have our CEC meeting, Commonwealth Education Continuum meeting on Wednesday, led once again, for those that don't know, by Commissioner Glass, Lieutenant Governor, or Workforce Secretary, and me. And our focus truly is seeing how we all fit together in a way that we can work together to identify areas that we can fill the leaky pipeline, if you will. Or we can fill the potholes, I call it, along the way. For us to have a great higher ed system, we need to have a great early childhood system and a great P-12 system. So this is no longer about pointing fingers. This is about us coming together, holding hands, if you will, to create this. So our CEC meeting will be coming out with some strong recommendations toward good policy that we can implement, as well as asking the legislature and the governor's office to support some of the big ideas that gets us where we need to go. So I want to appreciate Commissioner Glass and Lieutenant Governor Coleman for their work with us on that. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Amanda Ellis and Jennifer Fraker, who has been leading this charge for us. A lot of speaking engagements. I won't go in great detail. You can read it. We are often, I just noticed I was in the Chronicle of Higher Ed. Someone sent it to me a few minutes ago. But we are out there spreading the word about why Kentucky higher education matters. And we're getting a lot of people that want to hear this word. But it's more than just talking. They're wanting to hear because we're actually doing stuff. And so if you get a chance to look at those reports that I sent you, I ask you to please do so. I'm going to finish out my report, Mr. Chair, by asking Lee Nimitz to come up and talk just for a second about our Trusteeship Conference that's coming up in the fall. By the way, I'm happy to be back in person. Can you tell? It just feels good.
Lee, just if everybody, when you do speak, please speak directly into the mic. It's a little hard to hear on Zoom.
Can you all hear me?
A little closer.
A little closer. Can you all hear me now?
Perfect.
Great. Well, just very quickly, particularly for those of you who are new on the board, CPE annually hosts the Post-Secondary Trusteeship Conference, generally in September of every year. This is coming up. We're very excited about it. It's going to be in person, of course. It's going to be in Louisville at the new Hyatt. Is that right, Heather? Hyatt Regency. It is a 2-day conference. The first day we will dovetail your next business meeting. The next day is really going to be focused on professional development, networking, opportunities to really share a common vision and set of goals and strategies with the broader higher ed community. So all of the high-level administrators at all of our institutions, our friends in the private sector, our board members across the state are invited. And so we're hopeful for a very big crowd. Generally, the governor attends. An invitation is out to him to join us for the luncheon. We will have a panel of legislators talking about the upcoming legislative session. And we'll have some, I think, very dynamic speakers talking about key issues facing post-secondary education, both in Kentucky and nationally. So I wanted to put that on your radar. So hopefully you'll be there for the meeting in person, and hopefully you can stay the next day for the conference. So just wanted to put that on your radars.
Thank you, Lee.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to entertain any questions from the board. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the KDE report. We see Dr. Glass here on Zoom. Commissioner Glass, would you like to give your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As President Thompson mentioned, we had a really productive continuum discussion led by Dr. Thompson, Lieutenant Governor, and I am excited about where that work is heading. And even this week, Dr. Thompson and I dialogued about some ways that we could possibly use from federal COVID relief funds to support that effort and accelerate it even on an even faster timeline. So I'm excited about the prospect for that. Just a couple of updates of things that we are working on. We were relieved, and it marks a historic turning point to rescind our Healthy at Schools guidance document a couple of weeks ago. That really marks a return to some level of normalcy when it comes to school for the summer and also for next year. We're thrilled at the declines in COVID cases and deaths in the state, and hope that continues, and really urging and stressing everyone to continue the path toward full vaccination and support that. We're looking forward to when those vaccinations might be available to students under 12 as well. We think that may happen this fall, so we're excited about that and how it will make our schools even safer than they were this past year. We have been stressing with our schools the importance of thinking about how they can come back better than they were before the pandemic. There were lessons and ways that we delivered education throughout the pandemic that created greater flexibility, created greater student engagement, and created greater student agency. While that certainly wasn't the case for everyone, and there were massive equity concerns that were laid bare as we went through this process, there were some lessons and some positives that we can take away. And if we listen to our teachers and our students, they have already told us those things that they think we should continue with, including the flexible scheduling and both synchronous and asynchronous approaches to learning. There are opportunities to learn that abound in communities and outside of school that we should be taking advantage of. So those are the things that we're encouraging to continue post pandemic. The department is also supporting districts with the infusion of 3 waves of federal COVID relief funds. The first of those was the CRISA funds that came right at the beginning of the pandemic. Most of that was used for protective equipment and improvements to ventilation systems and just really immediate responses to the virus. We had another wave that was around $1 billion that came in January. It's being used now for the continuation of improvements to ventilation systems, but a lot of it's being used for summer school programming, extended school, extended day. So lots of exciting opportunities with that. And then we have yet another wave that's on the way. That is the American Rescue Plan funds that will total over $2 billion. Most of that will be distributed directly to school districts and to schools using what's called the Title I formulation that's based on poverty in the state. So most of the funds are going there. The department also gets to set aside 10% of that, so over $200 million. And we've identified programs and supports that are statewide or multi-regional in nature, and that either create direct experiences for students that are deeper learning experiences, that are experiential, that are authentic, that are meaningful, or that support the capacity of the teaching profession to deliver those kinds of experiences. So the big idea is that we've gone through a year of really awful when it comes to school and learning. In spite of all the things that we did to try and make it, it was really tough. And we can look forward to 3 years of awesome if we do this right. We can really create some amazing experiences for our students. And so we're excited about that. We should be excited about that. It's a lot to look forward to. We'll probably never have this kind of discretionary money in K-12 education again to create the kinds of experiences that I see ahead for our students. I'll close just by mentioning the continuation and focus of our work on equity. Dr. Thompson also sits on the State Board of Education. Last summer, they passed a resolution focused on equity, and I've taken that charge and hired a chief equity officer and built a team around that. Our efforts when we talk about equity really are toward evaluating practices and policies and resource allocation and power structures within districts that identify what students need and connect them with the resources that they need to be successful. This is certainly not a new concept when it comes to education, but we know that we have inequitable outcomes, not not just in academic measures, but across a host of different educational measures. And there are both community, demographic, poverty related reasons for that. But some of those reasons are within the control of the education system. Things like how we identify students for gifted and talented education, how we're handing out disciplinary consequences to students. Those things we see inequities emerge in that data, and there are things that we should be considering and doing from a policy standpoint to make improvements there. We're also working on the diversification of the educator workforce. We think that that's a really important project that we're working on in partnership with the governor's office and with CPE. We all stand together and believe that it's really important that our students have role models in their schools who are important members of their community and are educated professionals that have backgrounds like them, that look like them, that they can aspire toward being. And that we have support our districts with evaluations and reviews of their curriculum locally. Of course, at the state level, we don't direct or say what should or shouldn't be in curriculum at a local level, but we can support our districts in making sure that all of our students see themselves in the curriculum and see their stories of families like theirs in the curriculum. We think that that's important as well. So I appreciate the time to talk to you for just a few minutes and update you on the work of the Kentucky Department of Education. Mr. Chair, and I'll turn things back to you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Commissioner Glass? Okay, hearing none. Commissioner Glass, thank you very much. We have one change to the agenda items here. We have a few board members that have hard stops at noon, so we're going to go ahead and skip forward. I apologize, Dr. Aleka. We're gonna skip just to the action items so we can make sure we can get those in. So next topic will be the ASI committee report and action items. Lori Harper, as chair of the Academic and Strategic Initiatives Committee, I'll turn the thing over to you.
Can't hear.
Lori, we cannot hear you.
I know, all of a sudden I'm talking, I'm like, wait a minute, you didn't unmute yourself.
We can hear you now. Go right ahead.
All right, thank you. The Academic and Strategic Initiatives Committee, we met on April 23rd and June 8th. And while you can find that report of those activities in your materials, I'd like to highlight the work that's been occurring in development of the statewide strategic agenda. As you probably remember, CPE staff partnered with EKU Facilitation Center to do a comprehensive data analysis, and the committee was able to review those points in both April and June. On the qualitative side, the data was collected from hundreds of people through topic-based focus groups, one-on-one interviews with campus presidents, elected and state officials, and or representatives from national organizations, and through sessions held with establishing work groups and educational partners. These facilitators did a separate report for each grouping, but they also summarized the findings in an executive summary that clearly identified common themes and points in which we can focus efforts in the next agenda. That summary is in your materials under section 5E, and if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to review it, even if you're not part of this development process. Much of the quantitative data will be reviewed as pulled from the latest progress report, and committees use the data to discuss ways the council can develop policy that will improve college going rates, encourage students to return and finish their degrees, and how we can better align programs with business and industry. Over the next few months, CPE staff and the committee will be using these data points to develop a framework and priorities of the next statewide agenda. And we plan to have a draft to share with you at our September meeting. Also related to the agenda, you might recall that in our April work session, we had facilitated discussion on the state's current vision, mission, and value statements, and how we envision higher education in our state in 2030. Staff took our comments and drafted revised statements, and we reviewed those statements at our June meeting. We plan to finalize those in July and present them at our September meeting as well. Before I present our recommended action items, does anyone have any questions regarding the development process or what we've learned so far?
No questions here.
Thank you. I'll move on. So on our June 8th meeting of the ASI committee, we reviewed 9 academic programs. For those of you who are new to the council, the new academic program review process begins with the staff doing a deep review of the proposals before bringing them to the committee. Only those that they recommend be approved move to this process. Staff provided a number of documents on each, including the full proposal, list of coursework, and any feedback other campuses may have provided during the development process. Campus representatives attended our meeting, presented their programs, and answered questions that we had. The 9 new programs being recommended for approval today went through this process. Heather has them displayed on the screen, and I'll read them for the record. From Northern Kentucky University, a Master's of Science in Health Administration. From the University of Kentucky, a Bachelor's, Master's, and PhD in Aerospace Engineering, a Master's in Biostatistics, a Bachelor's in Computer Engineering Technology, and a Bachelor's in Lean Systems Engineering Technology. And from the University of Louisville, a Bachelor's in Computer Science and a Doctor of Social Work. The program summaries for each of these programs are in your materials, but you can access all the related documents in our June 8th board materials. Before I move on, did anyone have any questions on these programs? Okay, if not, the committee reviewed 4 other action items and recommended them for approval by the full council today. First, the cultural competency credential certification process, which is in line with Kentucky's policy for diversity, equity, and inclusion. You may recall that on our January, Dr. Don Offit reviewed the developments of this consistent statewide standard for excellence in cultural competencies with us. It is based on the A4 model of cultural competency: awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, and action. And since that time, staff finalized the process in which CPE can certify an institution's micro-credentials that can be embedded as part of the college coursework, professional development, and other delivery methods. Students, faculty, and staff can all benefit from this. Next, the committee reviewed and approved the academic readiness indicators for the 2024 academic years. This is a key responsibility of the council, and the staff worked with institutional representatives to determine the assessment that can be accepted as statewide indicators of readiness. Attachment A in your material shows the chart of indicators, which include the new additions of Accuplacer, EdReady, and an unweighted cumulative GPA of 3.0. And finally, we've had a busy meeting, I'm going to tell you. Finally, the committee reviewed the proposed amendments of the academic program review policy, which is also a key responsibility of the council. In this process, that ensures that Kentucky's established academic programs are consistent with state priorities and that public resources are being used efficiently for the greater good of Kentucky. As you know, the council contracted with Gray Associates to review all baccalaureate programs, and that process produced a new baseline academic portfolio for the state. The proposed process going forward combines the analytical tools development during that time of which existing institutional processes to continue the focus on institutional mission alignment, unnecessary duplication, and efficiency, and integrates a greater emphasis on alignment with the statewide post-secondary strategic agenda. Mr. Chair, that concludes the committee's recommendations, which should serve as a formal motion for approval.
Thank you, Lori. On behalf of the Academic and Strategic Initiative Committee, Ms. Harper has moved to approve 9 new academic programs, the process for the Cultural Competency Credential Certification, the 2022 through 2024 Academic Readiness Indicators, and the proposed amendment to the Academic Program Review Process. You indeed were busy. Because the committee made the recommendation, a second is not needed. Are there any questions before I take a vote?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say a couple of things. I think it's really important for especially our new council members to understand. If you look at the academic programs, these are academic programs. I said earlier about we're creating innovation as we are dealing with these issues. These are all there to build the economy of the state, help the strategic health of the state in more ways than one, including mental health. But the item that I really want to point out, and this has been years in coming, CPE and what we're doing, no other state's doing by creating the criteria for this cultural competence certificate that can be incorporated in our institutions in forms of micro-credentials that would allow all students, faculty, and staff to be deeply engaged with what it means to build an equitable process for education in Kentucky and be able to assess it. And that's crucial to this conversation because the diversity is about recognizing the difference in a human population in many cases we're talking about here. You know, cultural competence is a way that you can measure whether or not we're improving, appreciating, and seeing that just like writing competencies. And this is across the board. This is not just this diversity of thought, diversity of action, and a variety of other things, but it allows it to be put in the strategic process. I do want to thank Dawn and her crew for really putting forth this kind of effort, getting a lot of attention nationally on this, as you can imagine, as well as many of our institutions have already started building this out. It really, I won't say forces, it allows a strategic conversation to say, how do we include everybody into the process of recognizing that they have something to contribute? It is moving from a teaching paradigm to a learner's paradigm. And to me, I just want to point out the richness of that process. The academic program review process, no one else has done this in other states. We got Gray and Associate. We look at all the elements that holistically make up the properties of a program that needs to be there in order to advance us in the future. It also helps us to project the programs we're going to need 10 years down the road versus just looking and evaluating pieces that may have been rote of the past. So that I appreciate Melissa Bell and her crew for putting together in that form. The academic readiness indicators, Commissioner Glass, we're going to work really hard with you to make sure that what you all are putting in place in KDE and an accountability system that we align with you. Some of you know that when I came in, we actually went to a test optional minimal admissions system, while at the same time we got rid of developmental education, zero credit hours, while putting in policy that you had to give the wraparound services to our students to help them to succeed. That's our equitable inputs. And that's crucial to the understanding of, in my opinion, about where we need to go in this state, making sure we leave nobody behind, no matter what their backgrounds are or what their beliefs are. So I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, for taking so long. I did want to point out what this committee, what y'all are approving here are huge, big, positive items that helps forward our state. And Chair Harper, you did a yo person's job on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda, I believe is the Finance Committee. Yep. So the Finance Committee met this past Wednesday and we had 2 action items on the agenda. First, the committee reviewed the tuition and mandatory fee proposals submitted by the institutions. I'm pleased to announce that each of the proposals fell within the parameters approved by the council at its May 13th meeting. The average increase for a four-year institution was only 1.3%, and KCTCS voted to freeze tuition for the next year. After a budget debilitating pandemic year and lower tuition income due to declining enrollments, I think this percentage increase is something we can celebrate. Your board material include a write-up of all the proposals, but also two attachments for each institutions that show the proposed tuition rates and estimated tuition revenues. Council staff has presented 5 tuition reciprocity agreements for renewal. As a reminder, these types of arrangements are between 2 or more states where the residents of a defined region in one state can enroll at a specific institution or in selected programs in another state and vice versa for a reduced tuition charge. Under such agreements, eligible residents may also receive special treatment for admission purposes. The Indiana agreement is for a 4-year agreement through 2025. The West Virginia and Ohio agreements are 2-year agreements through 2023. The proposed changes to each, which can be found online in your materials, are in line with Kentucky's mission and advantageous to our students and citizens. Because the Finance Committee reviewed these motions and recommend them for approval, this report shall serve as a motion and a second is not needed. Are there any questions before I take a vote? Or any comments? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay. That's fine. Okay. In January, we heard from the public campus presidents on their progress towards meeting the statewide success and attainment goals. And each summer, we get to receive the report from the private colleges. President O.J. Aleka, a friend of CPE and the president of the Association of Kentucky's Public Colleges and Universities, otherwise known as AIKCU or IQ, is here today to walk us through some of the data points and also discuss ways the private campuses have responded to the challenges related to the pandemic. Board members, you should have a hard copy of the data scorecard at your table, and those in the audience can get a copy at the entry table. Council members meeting virtually, you can find it on your onboard materials, and those watching on the live stream can find the scorecard in today's meeting materials on the CPE website. With that, I will turn it over to President Aleka so you can introduce your additional presenters. Welcome.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the board for allowing us to be with you today. I will be brief in my remarks and turn it over to 2 of our fantastic presidents in the independent sector. President Donovan from Bellarmine University and President Lewis from Transylvania University. They'll be speaking more to provide a contextual look on the ground. But I bring greetings from the independent sector, and I'll speak from a high level in terms of what we've been doing at the association broadly. Again, you see the placard, you see the positive highlights there from our institutions. And I really want to point to, first of all, within this placard, how you see URM degrees going up. Again, these are underrepresented minorities. This is something that our institutions take very seriously to make sure that all of our students are represented well and that they're graduating. These things are happening within our independent colleges and universities in Kentucky. I think that's an important note to start with. But obviously, of course, the past 15 months has been dominated by something else, by and large, this nasty little virus. And that's where the association had to step in and play a role that we traditionally hadn't played as deeply. And that was getting involved in a serious way in terms of some of the operational opportunities that our institutions were dealing with, namely trying to make sure that we could build and deepen relationships with state government, particularly the administration. We had the opportunity to work with Dr. Stack, to work with the governor's office and making sure we could get up to speed on all the resources that would be provided at the federal level, as well as working with our federal representatives. But one thing that I think is critically important for this board to know is how our relationship with you all, with CPE as an agency, deepened because of the work of the staff and, of course, President Thompson. We have been able to secure some pretty great grants that have helped our students and our institutions succeed and thrive. That partnership and relationship is not lost on us. There's certainly a tremendous amount of work that you all had to do as an agency, and we appreciate all the partnerships that have been built and developed along the way. And Commissioner Glass and I have spoken about some potential opportunities as well as with CPE, and we look forward to those in the future. One of the things that we were also able to do was to develop a robust vaccine operation. We were able to work with Wild Health. Again, they had that partnership to get thousands of students that wanted them vaccinated, which was able obviously to help us get quicker in terms of some kind of normalcy. So we could all be here today in person, but also so our students could be in person and also get back to some type of normalcy in the fall. But I want to touch on a couple other things just very quickly. I mentioned at the top the importance of our URM students, our underrepresented minorities succeeding. We took that very seriously always, but even more so after last summer. We saw the events in Minneapolis with George Floyd and also in Louisville with Breonna Taylor. And we wanted to make sure that we had a clear message that we were sending to all of Kentucky, but quite frankly, to students who wanted to know if they were valued and welcomed. And so we did the first thing that is at the foremost of these types of decisions was we put out a statement that said that we welcome students with their racial diversity at all of our institutions. For a number of our institutions, this is the history. This is what they were founded on. We talked to Lyle Rulofs the other day, the president of Berea College, and I like to say that Berea was for intergender, interracial education before it was cool, in the sense that that's what Berea was founded on and that's what their mission is. And obviously, Transy and Bellarmine and all of our other institutions do these things very well, but we didn't want to stop there. And what I took it upon myself to do as the president of the association is bring our leaders together. And so typically what I tried to do is convene the presidents on a regular basis, but I also started to convene our diversity officers for that same purpose. And it looks different in each institution, but the idea was, how do we bring folks together so we can have a conversation about what's going on each of our campuses? The way that racial diversity and racial justice and those conversations look at Brescia University is different than the University of Pikeville. It's different than Bellarmine. It's different than Spalding. It's different than Transy and so on. But the idea was, how do we bring folks together to do campus spotlights, if you will, to one another, to figure out where to do some things differently, where to improve, and also how to focus on what we are doing well. Those groups meet monthly. Those conversations have been excellent, and we've got some exciting things coming up that we will be revealing here soon. But another aspect that was something that the association really wanted to do was figure out how to maximize the potential of our leaders. And when I say leaders, I mean our students. We are launching an emerging leaders program, which takes a junior student at each of our 18 institutions to do two things. One, develop a cohort for social networking so that you can have folks all across the Commonwealth who have a similar experience in terms of going to a private liberal arts institution, but also the social capital. We get to be in this room and convene as higher education leaders or folks who are invested in it. Our students need to do the same thing. But specifically our students who come from these disadvantaged backgrounds, whether they are students of color, first generation students, or students who are low income. The idea is that we want to bring these folks together to say exactly how they can work with one another. We'll provide an internship for them in the summer with a partner of ours in the private sector or the public sector, but also so they can develop particular skills like leadership and communication and other transferable skills when they get out of college. These are the types of things that our association is working on. And I will say a couple other things about other institutions who are not here that I think is pretty important. University of Pikeville and University of the Cumberlands have done some pretty exciting things in terms of free textbooks and opportunities for resources like that for students. There is a belief that there should never be a financial reason why a student cannot finish college. We know, and Dr. Thompson talks about this all the time, access is different than success, but affordability plays a key role in both. And that's how some of our institutions have tried to play that role. And there's a goal to expand this free textbooks and free resources to all of the Appalachian colleges within the Appalachian College Association. Also, the University of Cumberlands gave all of one of the tranches of the federal stimulus to their students. They had the complete purview to do with those dollars what they wanted, and they chose to give it to students, which is pretty remarkable. And Midway and Thomas More University are very excited about enrollment and retention and graduate rates being up. Again, these are pretty exciting things. This is what all our institutions try to do, and that's important. And also, Thomas More has been building a great relationship with their Northern Kentucky Chamber and what that has meant for the connection between business and education. But also, we have an important trustee from Brescia University who is now a member of the board, Madison. That is where I remembered you from. So that's also the connection between our institutions. And I think it's apropos in the sense that public and private higher education are singing from the same hymnal. As Dr. Thompson mentioned, he is the leader of the band. We are happy to participate and play our significant role to make that rhythm and cadence, because you know it's us that bring the rhythm and the cadence and the melody to make it just right for Kentucky higher education. So if there are no other questions, well, are there questions for me? If there are not any, I'll turn it over to the folks who know this stuff better than me.
OJ, it's been a while since you've been on this board, and we miss you. And I believe the last time I saw you, you were in this capacity, you were prepping for your PhD dissertation. Obviously, that went well, and congratulations, Dr. Oleka.
Thank you very much. That was actually the second most important thing to happen in 2020. We had our first child in May that year. Well, my wife had the child. I was just there present. But thank you very much.
You had something to do with it.
I had something to do with it. That's right. That's right. Any other questions for me? If not, I will turn it over to Dr. Donovan at Bellarmine.
Great. Thank you. As you can tell, we're very well served at IQ by Dr. Oleka, who did get his PhD at Bellarmine. So happy to brag about that. And was very helpful, as he indicated. The response to COVID in the state was incredible to us, and having sort of weekly calls with the IQ staff, talking to the other presidents, talking to Dr. Stack himself was incredibly helpful to us. We all had sophisticated systems on our own campuses, but knowing what others were doing and experiencing before or after us was really helpful. I appreciate being here in front of you. Even though this is I'm starting my 5th year at Bellarmine, time has flown by quickly. And obviously the last year and a half, it was hard to get out and get to other parts of the state. I had the privilege with Dr. Oleka and some of our business and nonprofit leaders to go to Clay County last week as a group. And I'm ready to get out into Kentucky more. So happy to meet all of you and hope that I am able to get to the other institutions this year and over the course of time. I spent 32 years in Maryland at one institution, Loyola University, Maryland, but actually grew up in the Midwest in Iowa. And it's great to be, I know I never know whether to say in Louisville, you're in the Midwest or you're in the South, but it's really great to be back into a really hospitable, authentic community, and been very embraced by the Louisville business and nonprofit leaders. And I'm so impressed with our students at Bellarmine who work very hard and carry on jobs and succeed well. So I want to talk a little bit about our strategic plan, and I'll go quickly. We started a strategic planning process my first year, so 4 years ago. We had 6 priorities. The first one is transformative student experience. We were able to succeed, so we're 2 years into the plan. Our 6th year are actually the class of 19 going into 20, because obviously we're not in the fall of 21 yet. We actually experienced a retention rate of 85%, 84.8, but 85%, which was a leap for us. It was the best in 2 decades. We usually average from first to second year around 80%, and we're anticipating that probably following the COVID there. Our 6-year graduation rate hovers at 65%. And 99% of our students were working or continuing their education, or both. And 79% of our students participate in 90 hours of experiential learning, internships, research, teaching, or community service. Our second priority is much of what you talked about today: academic innovation and excellence, working with our community to determine what programs are needed. We're adding an RN to BSN, an accelerated data engineering program, a biomedical science for students who did not get into med school but want to continue to pursue that, and a degree completion program. So we were very busy during the COVID months, very proud of our faculty and staff for continuing to move forward on our strategic plan. We had our first Schwartzman Scholar that year as well. Our priority 3 is our geographical and diversity expansion. And we're really hoping to move more regionally beyond Louisville. We've put a recruiter into Nashville area. Just to give you a little bit of a sense of the Bellarmine students, we have 22% of students of color, up 4% from the previous year. We're anticipating 25% this year. I think many people have a sort of misperception of Bellarmine at times. We have 33% of our students are first generation students, 27% are Pell eligible. We have 19% student athletes, 17% honor students, and we've just had a 57% increase in our military affiliated students. We have a veterans program that we had worked on for the last 4 years. You may have heard, probably have heard, that we went with the NCAA Division I during my time. We've just finished our probation year, did very well. We're with the ASUN conference, which puts us into many, Eastern Kentucky is now joining us, but it also puts us into the South. There are 4 schools in the South, 1 in Atlanta, Lipscomb and Nashville. So I think it's going to help us get better name recognition. If you ever want to come to a ball game, please let me know. We play any of our sports, but we played basketball, men and women's basketball in Freedom Hall, which was great. This year, we're probably the only Division I school that actually grew in attendance during COVID. Because we had 2,700, we had more than Knights Hall, but we will be back with Freedom Hall. We've done a long-term agreement with them, and we think that's a great partnership for us. And they have 18,000 seats, so I'm sure we can get you in. So looking forward to some rivalries in Kentucky as well. Our 4th is the diversity, equity, and inclusion. We did appoint a great chief diversity officer. He's a faculty member at Bellarmine. Full professor in higher education. He started the same year I did. He's on the president's cabinet, really doing an incredible job. And as you can imagine, in Louisville, during the strife in this past year, it was really important to our students and our staff to be able to talk about, at times to protest, and obviously to grapple with the issues. And we are recruiting a more diverse faculty and staff. We went through universal training for all faculty and staff in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have been working with the student group. We have a president's advisory board that meets and is representative across the institution and has a long list of agenda items, and we're plugging away at those and making progress. We've got some very meaningful partnerships. I'll just mention a couple that we've been working on. You may have heard, we work very closely with Norton Sports Health, Campus Wellness, and the nursing partnership. Norton has been a strong partner of ours. We're working with the Urban League and with Norton on helping to work with the students there. You may have heard about also the Butterfly Project, which we're one of 50. There were 600 applications through the Bloomberg Philanthropies, and we partnered with Microsoft, Future of Work, Central High School, the Louisville Urban League, and the city of Louisville to work. So we're 50 finalists for $1 million grant there, and hoping that we might be able to do that. But if not, we'll take it out to others. And the other partnership, there's several others, but the other one I'll mention is we did submit a $1 million grant to Congressman Yarmouth on the Community Health Professions Simulation Center with collaborating with JCPC and Park Duval to have a simulation center. We have a simulation center on campus. This would be a community one closer to the Watterson. If you know where the Watterson Medical Center is, we purchased that my first year at Bellarmine, and really think it'll be a valuable resource to community as well. And then last to mention, just to follow up on the 6th one, is enhancing access and affordability. And we give out $65 million in financial aid, $18 million for first year financial aid. Our top 10 competitors are actually public universities. People may not realize that, but in our cross admits that happens to be true. We are keeping our tuition down and room and board, and we also have introduced on-course and free books and materials for all undergraduate and graduate students at Bellarmine this year. And summer school is on track. We have the Governor's Scholars there, which we're very proud to host, and obviously doing a lot in philanthropy and fundraising as well. I'll stop there.
Any questions for Dr. Donovan?
None, but we had a chance to be in Clay County together, and I told him I was going to tell the council one of the special items you enjoyed there, but I won't tell them. I'll just let it go,
They'll
okay?
have to guess. But if they run into Senator Stiver, they'll know.
That's great. Okay, well, time for President Lewis at Transy.
Good morning. Good to be with you. A special hello to Councilmember Lori Harper, who is also a Transylvania trustee. So glad to see you wearing this hat, Lori. Good to be with you. Whenever I'm speaking with a group, I try to keep in the forefront of my mind what one of my favorite professors said was the most memorable student evaluation he ever received, because it read, "If I only had 10 minutes to live, I would want to spend it in Professor Chait's class because it would feel like 2 hours." So I hope the next 10 minutes will not feel like 2 hours, but really pleased to be here. And I want to extend to all of you the invitation that I extended to Dr. Thompson. We would love to host the CPE for a meeting on our campus. We have a terrific new campus center to showcase with outstanding meeting facilities, and we would love to welcome you to the heart of Lexington. And we're really proud to be one of only a handful, literally a handful of national liberal arts colleges that are located right in the heart of a city. And we take full advantage of that for our students and for opportunities for them. Because while we are certainly very proud of our history, we are the 16th oldest college in the nation and the first west of the Alleghenies, but we're also proud to continue to be innovators, because we keep in mind what Benjamin Franklin said, which was, when you're finished changing, you're finished. And we don't feel like we're finished at all. It's almost like we're just getting started. So just a few highlights of this past year and what's on the immediate horizon for us. The pandemic. We made it through this academic year without having to pivot back to fully online as we were for part of the spring of 20. And with wonderful cooperation and results on health protocols and vaccinations, we set aside a number of spaces on campus for quarantine and isolation, and we never got close to filling them. And my hat's off to the students for really buying into the need to be on campus and in person and to follow those protocols. We also made it through the pandemic without long-term financial reductions, furloughs, terminations, and without a deficit. So we are certainly grateful for federal support, but also for the continued engagement that our students and faculty and staff showed. So now we're planning for the next normal, which we anticipate will be a very much in-person residential experience, yet enhanced by what we've all learned from the last year in terms of being able to utilize technology to enhance courses and pedagogy. I think in part as a result of all of that, we had a slight increase in enrollment last year, and we have increased first-year deposits for this coming fall of 11%. We're really proud to be bucking the trends that we see around the nation. We also keep in mind access. We kept our tuition increase to 2.2%, which we tied to the higher education price index. And we've been keeping our tuition low because we know that our tuition is $10,000 less than the average for top 100 national liberal arts colleges in the nation. Also proud that 24% of our entering class for this fall are students from diverse backgrounds. In terms of success, we are incredibly proud of our graduating students. Our 4-year graduation rate is 68%. And in fact, the average time to degree for students is slightly under 4 years. We have an 82% retention rate. Students who are recommended for law school have been accepted at a 100% rate, and for medical school at a 90% rate. 95% of our graduating students are in a job or in a graduate or professional program within 6 months. So we're proud of where they are going and the impact they're having on their communities and professions. As I said a moment ago, we have opened a new campus center. Timing was very fortunate for us to be able to complete that on time and on budget when it opened in August, because with a new gigantic dining hall, we were able to socially distance people for meals. The students have already nicknamed it the Great Hall of Hogwarts because it kind of has that feel to it. We implemented a wide range of new information technology initiatives, many focused on cybersecurity measures. So we're glad to feel that we're ahead of the curve there. And we moved universally to a Canvas platform for online and hybrid instruction, which served us very well over the course of the last year. We've implemented a series of diversity and inclusion initiatives. We created a cabinet level, a vice president level position for diversity and inclusion. And Dr. Denny has hit the ground running, improving recruiting and hiring practices, engaging campus constituencies in review of our historical legacies that either need to be celebrated or observed and understood, as well as engaging with local efforts to diversify competitive vendor processes. Very proud of our student athletes. We compete in Division III. To say it was a roller coaster year would be an understatement, but our student athletes won conference, regular season, and or tournament championships in 7 sports, as well as numerous individual player and coach recognitions, all while navigating complex NCAA athletic conference and campus COVID protocols. We also launched a new esports program, which I really have been stunned by the explosion of esports, especially when I was encouraged that we were going to need to hire, as a director of the program, a young person with experience as a competitive player, but someone who probably has retired from that because in their early 20s, they no longer have the reflexes necessary to compete at the highest level. Yeah, I could feel my bones creaking at that.
We can talk about that at lunch.
We also conducted a number of market feasibility studies for new academic programs that we look to basically build on our existing strengths, but realize where there are potential new niches to add to those foundational strengths that we have. And we are preparing for our oh-so-fun every decade accreditation reaffirmation from SACS COC. Pleased to report that so far, we have the on-site visit coming in the fall, but we received fewer than average number of non-compliance notices by the off-site review team. So I think we're in very, very good shape there. So in conclusion, we are excited about preparing our students for what Daniel Pink has called the conceptual age. So we've moved from the agricultural age and the industrial age. We're now in the information age, but rapidly moving toward the conceptual age, where we need to prepare young people for jobs and skills that can't be automated or outsourced or replaced by artificial intelligence. So we're really thinking that we're preparing these young people not just for that first job or that first career, but that thing they're going to be doing 20 years from now that doesn't even exist yet. So that's where Transylvania is heading, and we're pleased to be at the table with you this morning. So thank you for your time.
Any questions for President Lewis? I'll make one final comment before we sit down. Of our 18 institutions, we contribute nearly $1 billion in economic activity with nearly 10,000 jobs, largely in rural communities. This past year was significantly challenging, but you can see why we got through. You can see some other states had some of their independent colleges shut down permanently, but we didn't. And that's because of the leadership that we have within the sector. The sector is strong. We're happy to contribute to independent higher education, and we thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask her? I was looking at your scorecard here. Your graduate enrollment is going up significantly. Any particular area of growth, or why is that? And you have more graduate degrees awarded this past year than the bachelor's degrees. Any explanations?
Well, it is a growing interest of our students, and so certainly our physical therapy program and our nursing, we're going to be adding anesthesiology nursing program as well. So ours are really predominantly in the healthcare area, although business as well is a strong suit for us.
Dr. Stacker, you're talking about the overall IQ numbers, I think, right?
Yes, probably.
Yeah. And this, you've seen an explosion on University of Cumberland's campus as well as Campbellsville. I mean, it's up across the board, but the leaders are those two.
And online.
In many ways, education doctorates mainly, but a few others. So that's where you see the numbers coming in as a whole. I know most of you are up in those areas, but probably not in those two specific online categories as those two
It
campuses.
just seems remarkable that you've gone in 14, 15 from 7,600 degrees to this past year, 26,000. That's a very marked increase.
Any other questions?
I just have a couple of things to say. I would be remiss if I didn't. I just want the council to know that Dr. Aleka sits on our president's council. So our private institutions are represented. We give information as if they were very much a part of us. We do license, for those that don't know, I know you do, our private institutions, their programs, all of what they do. So we have a strong relationship. We collect their numbers. They produce a significant portion of the degrees here in Kentucky. As a matter of fact, this past year during the pandemic, as a group of private institutions were collectively up in enrollment, even during the pandemic. So I just want to appreciate that. We will take advantage of your kind opportunity, sir, and look forward to working with you all more. I will also say that as we're developing our strategic agenda in the past, our private institutions, as Mason Dyer, good to see you, Mason, can tell you, has been very much a part of that. Even when we produce items that we do for our public institutions, our private institutions on their own, have volunteered to be a part of that conversation. So this is surely not a separation of the way that we conduct higher education in the state. So I want to appreciate all of you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Okay, next topic is expiring regulation action items. In 2017, the legislature passed a bill that requires administration regulations to be reviewed and have some sort of action taken on it at least every 7 years. In January of last year, council staff brought forth a recommendation to amend 2 campus security regulations by June of this year and are bringing forth a new proposed action today. While this is something the executive committee would normally review prior to coming before the full council, it is being proposed today due to the council's changing leadership over the last few months and the time limitations given by the legislative branch. Travis, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, just quickly, I know we're running a little short on time, and I think you gave a good overview. Essentially, back in January of 2020, you guys, based on my recommendation, made a motion to amend these regulations in the next 18 months. What that did was essentially give us 18 months to see the new implementation of the law that changed in the area of our Menger Crime Reporting Acts to align it with the Clarity Reporting Act and federal requirements. And essentially, anything that our campuses have to report for crime statistics for the Clarity Act, they would also have to report for the Menger Act. They were slightly different before. It created 2 reporting schemes. It was very confusing. And so we had a regulation that set forth the requirements for reporting. Now that those reporting requirements are aligned with Clarity, we simply ask our institutions to submit their Clarity report as their Menger report, essentially, because the reporting requirements are the same per the statute. And so after reviewing this for the past 18 months, we realized we do not need these regulations anymore. They do not add anything to the regulatory scheme that the statutes don't already provide. Essentially, the regulations repeat most of what's in the statute, which if we were to file a regulation today with that language in there, they would the review committee staff would not allow that to happen. This was a regulation passed many, many years ago. So bottom line here is after review over 18 months, we just don't need these regulations anymore. And we I'm asking you all to take action in order to allow those regulations to expire. Now, should we decide later that we do need new regulations in this area to give more clarification to our regulated entities, we can certainly promulgate new regulations. But as things currently sit, they're not necessary, and we're recommending that they be allowed to expire.
So do we need a motion?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have a motion? Motion by Mr. Weaver. We have a second?
Second.
Second, Dr. Stat. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Travis. Okay, before I give the report from the executive committee, I'm pleased to announce the new members of the committee. Eric and I, as vice chair and chair, automatically serve on the executive committee. The three additional members I appointed earlier this month are Lori Harper, Dr. Bob Stat, and Vidya Ravichandra. So welcome. It's hard to believe that it's been 2 years since the adoption of standing committee structure. When those were developed, the bylaws were written to have members serve 2-year term. I miss it? No. With up to 3 consecutive terms. This gives some continuity within the committee, but also allow members to vary their scope of work and interest level. The initial appointments were made in July of 2019 by Chair Zimmerman. While there have been some interim changes, it's now time to reset the new 2-year term. Heather has the full list displayed on the screen, and you'll notice there aren't many changes. I've already announced the executive committee, which will serve the remainder of the current term through January of 2022. For the terms of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023, I appoint the following members. To the Finance Committee, myself, Eric Ferris, Richard Nelson, Madison Silver, Doris Thomas, Dr. Robert Stat, Colby Burks. I will also act as chairman of the Finance Committee in the interim. And to the Academic and Strategic Initiatives Committee, myself, Lori Harper, Vidya Ravichandran, Kevin Weaver, Karen Hoover, Richard Nelson, Mohammed Babar. And one more. Dr. Robert Stat and Colby Burks. Lori Harper has also agreed to continue serving as the chair of that committee, and I expect she'll continue to do an outstanding job. The Committee on Equal Opportunities has both citizen and CPE memberships to advise the council on statewide diversity objectives and review institutional progress. To this committee, I appoint Christy Nelson to the vacated term ending December 31st, 2021, which was previously held by Ken Halbar. And finally, the council is also in a unique position to appoint two members to the Kentucky Authority for Educational Television, which is the governing body for KET, on which I used to serve. It's a great position. One position represents the state universities as a whole, and the other position represents the University of Kentucky specifically. At this time, I'd like to appoint Karen Hoover to fulfill the term previously held by Ken Halbauer, and Kevin Weaver to replace the position previously held by myself. Both terms end in November of 2023. You guys will have a fun time. That's a great organization. Next, Dr. Stat, as chair of the CEO, do you have any comments you'd like to make before I turn over to CP staff to present the results of this year's DEI evaluation?
Okay, it's the annual scoring process that you will be, Devin will be giving you, but I just want to comment on the hard work that the staff of the CPE staff and the committee members in scoring these proposals. It took me probably 3 to 4 full days of going over these just to score them, and the staff and everyone has just worked very hard on that. One thing I've noted is that the quality of these presentations has improved. It's improved significantly, and there are far fewer strategies proposed, but they are more significant. And one of the biggest issues that we heard from virtually all of the different schools is that the hiring and retaining of URM faculty and students is very difficult. The competition for qualified quality faculty in the of URMs the competition is very fierce, and so many of our very good faculty get offered at other positions, and well, money talks. But to finish up here, I've asked the staff to go through and look at all these different proposals. And there are some common threads throughout these proposals. And that I've asked them to prepare a list of the best practices that we can share with all the schools. And with that, I'll turn it over to Devin to give you results of each of the campuses.
Before he does, let me just say a couple of things. First of all, Dr. Stat, thank you. I mean, once again, you run a wonderful committee. I'm very impressed to see you all what you do. But I want to just tell the council, this young man, Deveron Muff, is now Dr. Deveron Muff. He just finished his dissertation, and so he's doctor. So congratulations, Deveron. We're happy to have you on board.
I do think he had a mentor, at least on the review committee.
Yeah, I'm not sure who that was.
Thank you, everyone. And once again, my name is Dr. Deveron Muff. I'm here representing our I'm here representing our diversity, equity, inclusion unit that we have at CPE. It is my understanding that we have a few new members who are new to this process, so I'm going to give a brief overview to start. In 1982, the state of Kentucky was found in violation of the Civil Rights Act, and we were put on a probation per se for the next 25 years. At the end of 2008, the Council on Post-Secondary Education formed the Committee on Equal Opportunities. This committee was dedicated to look at all of our institutions and to look at their diversity plans and things that are going on campus, which leads to where we are today in 2016. We now have our Kentucky Public Post-Secondary Education Policy for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This policy has three focus areas. There are opportunity, success, and impact. Opportunity is maintaining a diverse student body in an essential contribution to the educational experience of Kentucky's post-secondary students. So that's the diversity portion of our policy. The success portion of a focus area, it means that while maintaining a diverse student body is essential, institutions must commit to helping those students be successful when they arrive on campus. So this is the equity portion of what our policy does. And then finally, our impact. To realize the positive effects of diversity, Kentucky's public institutions must become communities that provide an inclusive and supportive environment for a diverse group of students. So this is our inclusion portion of the policy as well. Here we go. So we have our statewide diversity policy. But each institution in our state must submit an institutional plan. So a lot of times people get that confused, our policy and plan. But the plan is what each institution does. Each plan must identify strategies in the three focus areas of opportunity, success, and impact. They must outline an appropriate plan for assessment, demonstrate institution-wide responsibility, and then the Committee on Equal Opportunity will provide oversight and plan implementation. So with these plans, each institution is required to submit an annual diversity report. We just concluded our diversity reporting for the 2020 for our 2020 year, which we analyzed the 2019 and 2020 academic data was analyzed. So those qualitative reports were submitted in March. So each plan, or when they're reviewed, they're divided into two sections for the rubric. It's a quantitative and a qualitative section. For the quantitative portion of our reporting plans, universities can score a possible 18 points, and our KCTCS institutions can score a possible 16 points. The 2-point difference is in the enrollment section, where our universities have grad school enrollment as another category. And then the qualitative is 18 for both universities and KCTCS. So the minimum score for eligibility for the new programs, universities must score at least a 24, and KCTCS institutions must score at least a 22. So looking at the report evaluation again, the quantitative section, the evaluation of progress is set in the following areas. So they look at undergraduate and graduate enrollment. And again, graduate enrollment is obviously for only our universities. First and second year retention for URM and low income students. Graduation rate for URM and low income students. Degrees conferred or credentials awarded for low income and URM students. And then finally, the workforce diversity. So there's 9 areas for the universities and 8 areas for KCTCS institutions. So scoring works as following. You can get either 2, 1, or 0. A 2 would indicate that your annual target was met or exceeded, while a 1 would indicate that the annual target was not met, but it's greater than the baseline that was set in 2015-16 academic year, while a 0 would mean that the annual target was not met and the value was less than the 2015-16 academic year. Once again, the maximum points of 18 for universities and 16 for KCTCS institutions. So that leads us to our qualitative portion where we have our reporting teams where we get each member from our Committee on Equal Opportunities, along with members who also work with our CPE staff. They help evaluate these diversity plans for the qualitative sections. So each qualitative section focuses on three focus areas with opportunity, success, and impact. But each institution's plans identify strategies that are designated to meet the goals set forth in each of these focus areas. For each institution's reports are evaluated in the following criteria. Those criteria are implementation of strategies with fidelity, analysis of a strategy effectiveness, lessons learned, and next steps. And then the 3 evaluation areas are scored in the following manner. A 2 would mean that it would indicate that it meets or exceeds the expectation. 1 would indicate that they're making progress towards meeting expectation, and a 0 would indicate that the institution was not meeting expectations. So there's a maximum of 18 points for the qualitative section as well. With three policy areas, each with 3 evaluation areas and a maximum of 2 points in each category. So just to give you all a little brief overview of what our timeline looks like in a year, we start in February, where strategies are verified in our reporting tool. Each institution is given an opportunity to submit their strategies and the responses in our new reporting tool that we worked with some of the staff at CPE. And then on March 1st, the diversity plans were due. March 2nd is when the review teams who look at the reports, the review teams met for a calibration meeting to ensure fairness among all of our reporting. And then March 5th, the reports were disseminated to review teams. The scores were reported to the CEO on April 26th, and then today the scores are reported to you all at in CPE, and then on July 1st we'll give you all the improvement plan for instructions are given to the institutions who did not meet the minimum required score. So here's a look at our 4-year institutions. As Dr. Stat noted earlier, that there's been dramatic improvement among all these institutions from the first year we started. This is the 3rd year of us reviewing policies. The first year that we did this, on average, our 4-year institutions scored a 21.8, and this year the average was 28.7, with our 2 highest scores being from University of Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky University. Going on to our KCTCS institutions, a little bit smaller, I apologize for that. But our 2 highest scores here were Maysville Community and Technical College and South Central Community and Technical College. And again, the scores went up dramatically again. When we first started this process 3 years ago, the average score that these institutions got were 24.6, and they finished off this year with an average score of 27.4. So we're greatly pleased of where the progress is going and with our institutions.
Deborah, I just want to point out to the council that last year there was one institution that did not make it. I mean, it was more than one, but there was one particular institution that didn't make it. This time they came back and they were one of the highest scores. So they take this serious. I mean, they went back and really redid what they needed to do. So that's probably, if you look at anything that's happening here, those that haven't made it in the past, we'll have some that won't make it this time, but those that haven't made it in the past say, whoa, we're going to revamp, relook, and our staff work with them in great detail to make sure that they do.
Thank you. So there were two institutions that did not meet the minimum score requirements. That was Big Sandy Community Technical College and Morehead State University. So the next steps for them would be that, one, they would work with our CEO to develop performance improvement plans for their institutions. They would continue identifying high impact practices in the areas of opportunity, success, and impact. They would also begin preparing for the 2021 reporting process. And then finally, they would work with CPE data team and institutions to develop targets for the 21-22 academic year. So that concludes my presentation. I'm willing to take any questions or any comments that you might have.
Actually, Devin, let me just, for the new members of the council, this approach gives the universities an opportunity to express themselves. It's not just pure numbers. This system has replaced one that was just pure numbers. If you had one more student, one more faculty, you got a plus on it. And you could never meet some of the goals that we had using the old system. So I just want to say thank you to basically Travis, his crew that built this up, and Don now in it, Don Offit, and Devin. Thank you for your efforts.
Any questions?
Just one more item, just to point out that, and I contribute our diversity policy and the performance funding, but as two items, but also all the impact. Over the last several years, we've had a 17.5% increase in degrees and credentials in the state. We've doubled that, 36% increase in underrepresented minorities degrees and credentials. We're closing gaps faster now from our baseline than almost any other state in the nation. And so a part of all of these efforts holistically, we don't look at just one item. We look at all these inputs to target what we need to do and change campus culture, if you want to call it that, because strategies, process, cultural menus changed on our campus tremendously to get this kind of output. So I just want to say this stuff isn't taken purely just as another data point or another bureaucratic action. These items are directed truly toward those strategic engagement and strategic outputs that we need.
Excellent. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is the good news reports. Several of the campuses have provided written reports in your materials, so please review those if you haven't already. Are there any presidents here that want to comment? We have it. Okay, excellent. On to other business. Does anyone have anything additional they would like to address before we adjourn today? All right. Just want to say a few things. I know I'm in between us and lunch, so it's a dangerous place to be. I just wanted to thank the council members who can make it in person today. It's great to see everyone, new faces and familiar faces. For all of those who are on Zoom, thank you for joining us as well. I want to say a special thank you to the CP staff for all that they've done to make not only this meeting happen, but all of the work that happens behind the scenes to make all this data available in such an easy to absorb way. For the new council members, it wasn't always like this. This is a lot of work it takes to put together. I don't know if you guys have seen this and the other placemats and all the other data. And I know that's a reflection on not only the excellent work the CP staff is doing, but also in Dr. Thompson, your leadership. So thank you very much for that. I also want to say that we're in a unique point in history, and I'm blessed to be the chair at this unique point in time. I think we have an opportunity to do great things together. I see the momentum that we have in higher education that hasn't been there before. We're bridging aisles, we're holding hands and not pointing fingers. And I think I'd like to challenge everyone on the council to bring your absolute best, because now is the time. We are the people that can make real change and continue this momentum going forward. With that, any other closing comments or remarks?
Just the trusteeship that's up on the screen right now. The speakers that the CPE brings in are all excellent. I've been to half a dozen of these and have never been disappointed. It's well worth your time.
Correct. And with that, thank you, Dr. Stats. Almost like we planned that. The next council meeting is September 14th, which will line up with the annual trusteeship conference. It will be held at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Louisville. And Heather will be in touch soon regarding attendance and lodging needs. I'll second what Dr. Stats said. It is an excellent opportunity. So if you can't make it, please do. All right. Unless there's anything else, do we have oh, yes, Lee. Yes. So lunch is served right behind us, behind you all. Yes.
Courtesy of Terry's Catering, have takeout boxes and have spaces of tables where people have breakfast. If they have time and they want to stay and socialize a little bit since we are back for today. So
Perfect.
everyone's welcome to stay and have lunch too.
Sounds fantastic. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you do.
Motion from Dr. Stat, second from Mr. Nelson. All in favor?